So you have signed up for an info session for the registered nursing program at Palomar College. So a little bit about the program. We go over the fundamentals. This is a 4-semester program. So we accept in the fall and in the spring. It is 4 semesters long, so about 2 years. We do not do classes in the summer. Everyone needs a break at that point. So as far as it goes, so first semester, you're working on your fundamentals. And then second semester, and first semester, you're also doing medical surgical. Second semester, you're doing obstetrics, pediatrics, and behavioral health. Third semester, you are doing psychiatrics and geriatrics and medical surgical. And fourth semester, you're doing advanced medical surgical and your preceptorship. So the program is very rigorous with limited hours. Students are required to be available Monday through Saturday if need be. A typical week would pretty much be a lab class, a lecture class, a day of lecture, a day of lab, and a day of clinical. And so you have that. Let's see. So it is able for you to maybe obviously still attend to any children you may have or do work, but you need to be available for those times. So before the semester begins, you will already be aware of when your lecture and lab days are and when your clinical is as well. We'll talk about how affordable it is a little bit later. Our students, when we do our alumni surveys, they are usually hired actually within 3 months, but 6 months is a nice cushion. Those that actually have told us they aren't hired usually say that they've gone on to do their bachelor's and maybe they've dedicated their time there instead of trying to juggle both of working and studying. And then we have our pass rate, which we'll talk about in just a second. We have multiple partnerships, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So this is the pass rate. Our past year, we were able to have 100% pass rate with our 26 students that had taken the NCLEX. So we definitely prepare you and get you ready for that so you actually pass. We are accredited, so our accreditation is through the Commission for Education and Nursing, approved through the California Board of Registered Nursing as well, and obviously Palomar College is WASC accredited, so your classes will transfer if you need to transfer out. And just a little fun fact that Palomar College is the oldest community college in San Diego County. So we're going to get started into the pieces here. So if you click on this link, this PowerPoint is actually provided where you found the information session. This video as well as it's linked at the bottom, and I can show you again where that is. The admission to our generic RN program is based off of points. It is also based off of random selection, and I'll go over that as well. That is still point-based. We also go based off of science coursework, fixed set GPA, and T's. This is technically the minimum requirements, but obviously if you want to gain more points, you can get points for any of these. And I'll go over that worksheet a little bit later. So the first thing that we're going to want to do to make you eligible is to do your science classes. So you need to take anatomy, physiology, and microbiology. There is an expiration date on these classes. Anatomy is 10 years. Physiology and microbiology are 7 years. You do need to have a minimum of a 2.5 GPA. So that means that you can't have C's in all of these classes. I highly recommend that you don't even try to get a C in these classes. The better your GPA is on this. This is 1/3 of the points. So this is why this is kind of number one. Getting the full 30 points would get you the 4.0. Online lab and lecture is usually not accepted. There are examples of that on our prerequisite coursework page, which I'll show you about later. The lecture and lab should be connected. It's 4 semesters, semester units. So if you're doing it at a quarter school, it's probably like 5 or 6 quarter units. So let me go ahead and take a break here and stop sharing and check out the chat. So I don't see any questions just yet. So let me go ahead and keep moving on. I'm going to skip T's for a second and just keep going with actual classes. So the fixed set GPA is another thing that you will be looking at. So we have English composition, speech, math, which is intermediate algebra or higher. It says statistics if you're trying to pursue a BSN. Otherwise, intermediate algebra or higher, like college algebra, is fine. A psychology class, a sociology class, and a humanities class. These are classes that you do need to take. Humanities and one of these will not be counted towards the GPA. And that is because they're just degree requirements. And I'll go over that when I show you the worksheet a little bit later. And chemistry is also not required. That's mostly a BSN requirement. Okay. And let me go back to the T's. So as far as the T's, you have the T7 is currently what is out since past June. If you have taken T6 in the past, unfortunately, beginning this coming application period, we are no longer going to accept the T6. So if you have taken it in the past, unfortunately, you will need to take it again. A 62 is what is passing. So we only allow your first passing score, and then we use that score for the next 2 years. Okay, so you definitely want to do well. ATI is the name of the company. So those of you that may have taken an SAT in the past, College Board was the name of the company. So ATI is the name of the company here. TEAS is the name of the test that you will be taking. I have heard from students that it's pretty much English, math, and science. Most people recommend to wait to take the TEAS until after you've done your microbiology class. Maybe I just recommend maybe doing it after all your sciences class, so that information is fresh in your mind. I also recommend you taking the ATI website has practice exams for you to take, so I also recommend you taking that as well. And then you also have what else was I going to say? Yeah, just making sure you do your best there. And then I've also been told that the English is kind of grammar heavy. So I do have a question here. So let me go ahead and answer that. If you took Anatomy and Physiology 1 when COVID started, will that be accepted? Yes, it should be accepted. And then as long as it's from an accredited school. And then you would need to take Anatomy and Physiology 2. So you need to take both. And that's also written on the website that I'll show you. If you already have a bachelor's, you still need to take TEAS. TEAS is a separate exam. It's usually required by most nursing schools. As far as you having a bachelor's, there may be some classes that you may have already taken that you don't need to take, like probably English communication, if you did your bachelor's in the United States. Okay, so let me go ahead and that is again a third of the points, and we'll go over all of what the points are for each of them as well. So the TEAS and your sciences, you want to do good on both of them. As far as let me go back. As far as the sciences is concerned, again, like I mentioned, you definitely want to try to get an A in these classes because they're so heavy. C- is not passing. D, F, if you had to withdraw the class, we don't look at that. If you took it, some schools may look at that. We do not look at that. We don't count that as your first attempt. You're only allowed to retake one of these for a better grade. So again, if let's say you got a, C, B, A, for example, you can retake the C to hopefully bump up your GPA. And speaking of that, I'm going to keep moving forward here. So this is an example of how to calculate your GPA. We actually do not look at the pluses or minuses. So we just, if you got an A, you get 4 points. If you got a B, you get 3. This is how to convert if you're doing quarter to semester units. And again, just a reminder to make sure your science classes are at least 4 semester units. So this would be an example of science classes. So let's pretend this is anatomy, 4 units, physiology, And then this microbiology is actually broken down into a lecture and a lab. So both of these classes are then calculated out. So this student has a 2.83, which we'll remember a little bit later as we look over the point system and everything like that, okay? And then I am checking to see if anyone is an LVN to RN student. If you want to just put your hand up or thumbs up if you are, and I can quickly just go over that additional piece. You still have the same requirements, you just have a little bit different. And I'm not seeing any LVNs reaching out, so I'm going to just skip this for now, since they technically can have their own information there. So obviously, to finish off the rest of this PowerPoint real quick, so if you're admitted into the program, you will then have a background check and a drug screening. And then you also will be required to do a physical and your vaccinations and things like that. And then if you have any questions on that, you can reach out. And then as far as the cost of the program overall, it's about $7,000. Your first semester is the most expensive because you're paying for your background check, you're paying for, your Complio account, which is where you upload all of these confidential documents, your uniform, and any other supplies. So that's why your first semester is the most expensive. And then after that, it's not that bad. And so how do you prepare? You want to meet with a counselor if you haven't done so already. You want to get your Palomar ID. A Palomar ID is required for you to submit your application. And then since the application is online, it just makes things easier. If you get into the program, you already kind of have an idea as to how the system works to enroll you into your first semester of classes. FAFSA, this is can be a point for your application, and then your residency to make sure that you're being charged correctly. And then official transcripts, we only accept unofficial for your application. Whatever you submit on your application is what we will look at. So we don't have access to any of the records that you've sent to Palomar. And then we'll request that you submit your officials if you get accepted into the program. And to finish it off, we do have connections with RN to BSN bridge programs. So this means that you would be doing the classes at some of these places while, bridge, after you finish your degree with us. So once you get your RN license, you're able to go ahead and apply to maybe an RN to BSN program. And most of these tend to be online, and that's usually because you've already done a lot of your clinical work with us, and therefore that's kind of the reason why they don't really require you to kind of have sometimes you're already working too. So you're already getting that experience. So it's just the additional knowledge for the income. Let me stop sharing real quick. I have a question real quick. I don't know how much the Palomar Promise actually covers. That would be a question for financial aid. Okay, and let me just finish this real quick, and then I'll go into the application. And then this is concurrent RN to BSN programs. So this is, for example, like Point Loma, Grand Canyon. So all of these, again, are usually online. And this is actually when you're doing your RN program. You can actually start on your BSN. So I don't know much about that other than this. Some of these on this recording may change. I'm in the process of actually checking to make sure that these are still the contacts. But other than that, you can probably just look up the website on there. And then this is just our contact information here. So let me go ahead and move over to the website so I can kind of show you where all of this information is and give you a little bit more updates on everything. So let me share my screen. So this is where you saw the information session or the recording. You can book one-on-one advising appointments. It actually has it for our staff. So we do have, it's only out for 2 weeks. And we are in the process of currently transitioning staff. So it may be a bit limited in the process right now. And then the PowerPoint with the updated contacts, like I mentioned, should be here. So we're going to go to palomar.edu/nursing, and then you should be able to find the how to apply. The multi-point criteria worksheet, this is it. So let me go over it. Feel free to ask your questions and I'll stop after each big box. So your degree, if you have a degree, these three, before I start, is a maximum of 15 points. So if you have a bachelor's, you already get 10 points. And then you could only really get points for one or the other. If you have an associate's, you can get 5 points. Something that I would recommend if you don't have an associate's yet is check with a counselor to see if maybe you can do a general studies course to get that done. There's no, the benefit of having a BSN, I guess, would just be the fact that it is a higher level. And then relevant health certificates. So if you have an LVN, you already get 5 points, military or a health certificate. And that would be the, give me 1 second here. The health certificate would be, these are examples. So if you have your EMT, paramedic, phlebotomy tech, home health aide, and then if you are a nurse assistant, like a CNA, that's pretty common. So a couple of these that I feel are pretty quick are hyperlinked. I've been told that this program is only about 3 weeks long. You would need to pay for it, but some of these, if you just type in like San Diego, it'll show you all of the ones in San Diego County. Some of these are online, so you might have to do your own sleuthing, but it's something that you can do maybe during the summer or during winter intersession to give you an additional 5 points. That wouldn't take you very long to get. And then you have your relevant work or volunteer experience. So we also have information on that. And so we have our local hospitals that we kind of work with. They have their own volunteer opportunities. And then here we have a couple of people outside of the community that reach out to us asking if we have like a nurse or someone interested in becoming a nurse to help maybe their elderly mother or father, you know, take care of them and things like that. And they can pay. So that's an idea for you. It does need to be within the past 3 years, 100 hours minimum. Okay. So that would be the first 15 points. This is not required. None of this is required. You don't need to have a degree. These are just additional points that you can go ahead and receive. And then, like I mentioned, anatomy, physiology, and microbiology. So for example, do you remember that student that we just looked at? That was the 2.83 GPA. So they would be here at 15 points. So they're kind of at the bottom of the barrel here and just made it. So we definitely want the full 30 points. So definitely try your hardest to get those grades. You know yourself best. If science is not your forte, then you might want to only take one at a time. I have seen some students take all 3 science classes and get A's in all of them in 1 semester. Clearly, science is their forte, but they're very good at science. So you know yourself best. If you feel like you're not passing the class, I personally recommend just drop it. Again, you know yourself best. You know what other places you might be applying to, but for Palomar College, it's okay if you get if you get a withdrawal grade, and then you can just retake it and do better. You know, life happens. We're aware. So, and then as far as the fixed set, like I mentioned, humanities is not counted into the GPA. English, speech, math, psych, or soc. So for example, let's say you got a B in psych and you got an A in sociology. I'll take the A to calculate your GPA. That's why it says psychology/sociology. So I'll take the better grade of the 2. And that's kind of written right here. Okay, you can use AP exams. These courses don't expire. I highly recommend if you have taken these classes in the past and you got like a B or a C, I personally recommend just retaking it so you can get the full 15 points. Otherwise, these are a bit more broad in getting those points here than they were up here. So I definitely recommend you retaking it. I got a couple questions. You would need to do anatomy and physiology 1 and 2. So let me go ahead and look into that. So this is the prerequisite page. It's also listed right here underneath the worksheet I'm showing you now. It is the prerequisite coursework page. So we have the, these are the classes we don't accept from certain schools because they're online. So for example, Straighter Line, we do not accept, University of Phoenix, the science classes. This goes over science and specifically, so you need a C or better, have a combined 2.5 GPA. I've already mentioned. These are the expiration dates again, and these are the class name at Palomar College. So combined anatomy and physiology courses, you must take both, and then that would need to be within the last 7 years. It goes over our retake policy, which I've mentioned multiple times. You can only retake one. And then this kind of goes over examples of the classes that you would want to enroll for. Okay, just some examples. Some people don't know which humanities class. So these are examples. So if you've taken like a Spanish class, you've already met humanities. Okay, and we'll just use that. I did have another chat. Prerequisites. I'm getting a degree for university health studies. Yes, that would still count. Any actual degree. Yes, they'll probably make you change your major because you can't technically do nursing if you're not enrolled in the program. So until we send the list over to records and financial aid, they assume you are not a nursing student. So, okay, where was I? Let me go back here. Okay, so that's all of this. Now we get into, again, some additional points. You can get up to 5 points maximum. Veteran, kind of know if you're a veteran or not. This also applies to the military spouse. Disabilities, a copy of your DSPS evaluation, a letter from physician or veteran affairs. This can also be a learning disability, so you can get a letter from the DSS office if you're getting assistance there. Low family income. So if you're pretty much receiving like financial aid like the CCPG or the federal Pell Grant, if you have a letter from EOPS, or if you have like a CalFresh or a Medi-Cal card, you can always show a copy of that. As far as the letter of eligibility, you do need to be careful on that. So usually when you submit your FAFSA, you kind of get a page that says you may be eligible and your estimated family contribution. That we are not accepting. It pretty much needs to show proof that you have received funds. So when you get your financial aid award, it should say something that, you got the funds as far as being part of low income. I'm going to skip this one for now. Need to work during prerequisites. So this one does not need to be related to the healthcare industry. So, you're working at, some office or Burger King, then you can go ahead and get a letter. And we just need verification dates. We will allow you to submit maybe like a paycheck that shows the dates of employment, and we compare that to your transcripts. So obviously we can see like the dates during fall 2022 should match with whatever you posted. On our other checklist, it does say W-2, but we're going to be, we should be updating that shortly to, we don't really want W-2s because it just shows the whole year. So we don't really know when you were working. And then if you're a refugee, you kind of know, and then you provide proof of that. So first generation, whether you're first generation or not, that is a written statement. Word count, it says it right here, that's 100, and then these other two are 200 words. Word count will be checked for you to be able to get a point because the application is online, so it's very easy for us to check the word count. So just make sure you have that done. So that's a written statement. We have social or educational disadvantages. Social is kind of self-explanatory. And then you also have educational. These can be examples like if you were doing your classes during COVID and maybe switching to virtual learning, you can maybe talk about that. Maybe if you have a learning disability, you can actually talk about that. If you have, what is the other thing? Maybe if you're an older student or you started school and you left and you came back, you can always talk about maybe your change into switching or how education has changed, or maybe if you're not even from this country and the switch in education systems, you can always talk about that. So these are just some examples that are still, again, related to school and education. And then difficult or personal family circumstances, I don't see why nobody should be able to get at least 1 point in this whole area. We all go through life. These are examples of something that may have happened, and you just write about it. This is why this is like a point. We want to see that you're like a person. Personally, person reviewing the application is not reading it. Because we have 300 applications to review, but faculty have a smaller pool to double check the points. And so therefore they are the ones kind of reading that and giving you the point there. Okay, taking a quick pause. Can you enroll in nursing program at a university with a university healthcare studies degree if I've done all the pre-work? Because I have no idea. That would be a question for a counselor. I can only help you with applying to Palomar College. Earned a bachelor's degree in 2010. At that point, it was first gen. Would that count? Yes. Even though you have a bachelor's, you're still first generation because you're still the first person in your school, in your family, to graduate with a degree. And then proficiency in a language other than English. This is, again, another additional points that is not required. You don't need to know another language, but it does give you points. This is where you can actually use your high school. So you don't get a full point as you would if you were in college, taking college classes, but you do get some for the years that you were studying for language. And then obviously if you did like AP Spanish or French or something, you would get points that way. The official college transcripts, again, you don't need to include another transcript. I can see if you took language classes when I'm reviewing your transcripts that you submitted for above. And then your letter, if you're working the language, if you're using that language at work, I'm sorry, they can either add that to maybe your letters of verification, verification of employment, or they can do a separate letter. And then the personal statement. So for example, if you're doing, I'm going to use Spanish as an example. You can do a personal statement in Spanish and then translate that into English and upload both of those documents to the application. If you happen to have a language that doesn't use like the symbols that we use, then I would recommend, if you don't have like the keyboard or you don't know how to get the keyboard to like manually use that, then you can write it out, scan it, and then translate that into English. Some people ask, what do I talk about for this? Whatever you would like. You can either, if you already wrote something here that was 200 statements, you can just translate that into English. Or you are welcome to answer some prompt questions. For example, why do you want to be a nurse? Why did you choose Palomar College? You can answer both of those questions if you don't get to 200 words by then. So that's just kind of an example. Before I go to T's, let me ask and check on this. I don't know what the seal of biliteracy count. I would have to check on that one. I'm not sure what that is. If you have a certificate somehow that you're bilingual, then I would think that that would count. We would have to check though. And then again, you have the T's, which I've already spoken about. Again, T7 is going to be the only version that we're accepting now. We do need to see all of your attempts, but we will, again, to verify, it says it on there, like attempt 2 out of 3. So we can see if you've only submitted 2 out of 3 because you felt like that was your best score. We will ask for attempt 1 and attempt 3 because we look at the dates before we determine the points. So obviously the higher the points, the better it is. So this is why I mentioned this is a third of the points. So, and 62 is pretty low in passing. So when you calculate all of these up, that is your score that you would get. So what I try to tell students, sometimes they wait for this to be the last thing, which is completely fine. According to their website, you are able to go ahead and do the T's within, get your score, sometimes same day, sometimes within the next 2 or 3 business days. So students that are currently in the application period may still be needing to take the T's. So as long as you submit your application, with a T-score, you're fine. I also get questions about what if I'm in progress? Can I still apply? You cannot. I need a grade to be able to calculate the GPA. So you have to wait until you receive a grade and then apply for the next available term. So let me move on to the website, which is going to be right here, the generic RN application website. Since if you're an LVN, it'll be right there with more information. So this again is, kind of your holy grail, what you'll be looking at. 4 semesters long. I'll go over the admission process in just a second. So I try to update, like, for example, this application period for fall 23 is closed. I try to provide updates if you had applied, like you were sent an email on this date, if I received your application, right? A great thing about the application being online now is it has hopefully sped up the process of reviewing your application. All of the stuff that you used to do on the first page, just writing your name and, your contact information, that all had to be manually entered in the past. So the fact that it's online now has taken, weeks off of our processing time. So we try to let you know by May. This is usually when you would get a decision. We do try to have application sessions during the application period to help you with your application. So when you are in the application, if you have questions, does this count? Does this count? Some of you are asking those questions now. It's nice to be able to know then and there, since you already know that you are interested in the program versus this recording now. And then this is the checklist that I was mentioning that we need to update that talks about like the W-2, but again, it's a nice little checklist to kind of check things off to make sure you have everything ready for the application, that you have all of your documents. This also goes over to say that you do need to have everything in PDF format. So a picture is not, you need to change it to PDF, and it needs to be clear. So all of your transcripts, I highly recommend that you either just upload them or scan them properly, or a lot of schools now are allow you to go ahead and download your unofficial transcripts. Whatever you submit in your application is what we will use. You will receive a confirmation email that your application has been submitted, and like immediately, like the default, and then we also try to email you again, letting you know, okay, the application period has ended and, application processing has started. The multi-criteria, this worksheet is here on this page like 4 or 5 times, so you can't miss it. And then let me move down here just a little bit. This just gives you, again, more specifics and things like that, kind of, again, answering kind of frequently asked questions. You can only retake one science class. You can retake all of the other classes like English, math, speech, psych, soc, but it's just the science that we will only allow one of the sciences to be retaken if you got a C, B, or A. So again, C- or lower, or a W, you can retake it and not count as like the retake count, I guess. So this is what we've done in the past. Our applications are usually right around 300. This is who we admit, 36 each cohort. And this is our obviously average points, but what you'll want to look at is who we usually accept. This is kind of like the points. So the lower the application, the lower the points go. So the way that it works is we accept 36. Now, shocker, not all 36, that we accept the first say yes to us. So that's why the application decision process is very fluid. So let's say out of 36, maybe 25 respond to us by the deadline that we have stated. And so then we will move on to the next, like however many, until we get to 36 that have said yes to us. So where do we get the 36 from? That is something new that has started this semester. We will have 2 admit pools. 26 will be accepted based on the point-based system, based off of points, and then 10 will be chosen at randomly from a pool of students who have 70 points or higher. Okay, so if someone from the point system declines their seat, then we'll replace that with the next highest points. And same thing, if you're part of the randomly selected. If you decline, then we'll accept someone randomly in that pool. So again, if you have 70 points or higher, you should be good to go. My goal is that you guys, after going through this information, you guys are way up in the 80s. So as far as the standby, so we don't technically have a wait list. So once we accept 36 that has said yes to us, we send them orientation information. Then we send another 10 to 15 students orientation information. Why do we do this? Some students don't come to orientation. Maybe they finally got accepted to another place and they forgot to let us know. So we accept them at that point. If the first, like we mentioned, the background check is usually the first thing that you have to do that you actually have to pay for. And so that kind of forces students to kind of make a decision if they were kind of juggling two nursing schools. And so that means that, you know, another person also gets to take that spot. So that's usually where you see these numbers come from. So it's nice to know that like these students already attended orientation, they're interested in us, that's why they're on the standby. And sometimes even the standby ends up saying no, that then maybe they got into another place. So that, again, very fluid, the application period. Usually by around orientation starting, we have let people that are most likely not going to be eligible for this application period. At that point, we let you know that you haven't been accepted. And we try to update all of that information again up here at the top. I try to let you be aware, but you guys all talk to each other. So usually when we start sending out our application decisions, we start getting bombarded by emails and phone calls. So just be aware of that. So the next time to apply is in July. So I'm going to use this as an example. So for example, fall 2022 was before this application period, right? So your classes needed to have been done by fall 22. And it actually gives you a little bit of cushion even during this application period if you maybe needed to take a sociology class or something during winter intersession. Your grade hopefully will be posted by the time you finish by the application period. Same thing with this. Sometimes it's the first session of summer if you needed to take a quick class. Obviously, if it's a science, it's most likely the whole semester, right? So it wouldn't count. But if you needed to maybe retake a generic, like fixed set GPA class, you may be able to do it during that time. And then you're applying like almost for one semester later, right? For fall 23. And then this one would be in the summer for the spring. So you'd give us the fall to review the application, and then we'd give you a decision at that point. Okay, so I am going to stop sharing and I'm going to stop recording, and then I will answer any personal questions, okay?